I don't want to do either of these. God help me. God help me.
What's with kids today, huh?
Freddy's dead. The final nightmare.
Great graphics.
Hey guys, before I start this video, I just wanted to let you know that the script that I talk about at the end of this, I found it on the internet. So here's what we're going to do. If you go in and get 1,000 people to watch this video, post it on message boards, share it out, get it out there. If we hit 1,000 on this video, I will do a dramatic reading of the entire 110 plus page script. So get this out there, get it shared, and enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to the next installment of Popcornween. Today we're going to be talking about Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare. And Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare is the last movie of this Nightmare series. Even though there were 2 movies after, they weren't a part of the Nightmare series. So this one was supposed to sum it all up, wrap it in a nice little bow. And did it do that? Absolutely not. It was a steaming pile of dog excrement. Now, I've recorded this video about 5 times. I've spent maybe 2+ hours recording this video. And every single time I get halfway through and I'm like, nope, it's too long, kill it. Because this movie not only is a steaming pile of dog doo-doo, it was also supposed to be freaking amazing. And so I have to split this thing into 2 where I talk about the shitty movie, but then I explain to you the script that got trashed by the director. So what I'm going to do is we're going to skip the vast majority of the shitty part, and we're going to get to the amazing part, because you've all seen this movie. It's not like you haven't seen A Nightmare on Elm Street 6, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. And it's not like you didn't see that it was like Looney Tunes, and it was stupid, and it made no sense, and time-traveling Freddy is dumb. No. You saw all that. You saw the stupid town where all of the teenagers were killed and the teenagers show up and you've got Roseanne and Tom Arnold because cameos, because we have to do that because for some freaking reason, New Line Cinema thought they needed a title every single year. And so talented directors weren't available. Wes Craven wasn't available. Actors weren't available. And budgets weren't available. And time wasn't available. And that's what screwed up several of the other ones. If you notice a trend in these movies or reviews that I've been doing, you will notice that every single one I said it could have been good. It could have been better. And this is no different. They didn't have time. It released. The first Nightmare on Elm Street released in 1984. This one released in 1991. That's 6 episodes. That's 7 years. That's how long it took them to make 6 entire movies. 7 years. And then everybody wonders why the later ones were just crap. So what did they do? They said, hey, let's make the brilliant choice of hiring a woman to be the director and to be the writer for this. See that lady right here? Her name's Rachel Talalay. And she is everything you think she is looking at this. She came in and she did an awful job. The only good thing that she did, and I want to make sure I get this guy's name right because he deserves every bit of credit. She brought in Michael Amareda to write a script. And he delivered a script of a movie that I still want to see. And this asinine woman looked at that script and said, nah, it needs to be light and fluffy. There needs to be disabled people in it. There needs to be representation. There needs to be a woman who's dealing with sexual assault. It needs to mean something. We need to be able to identify and empathize with these people and Freddy. And that entire movie was that. And it was absolute dog shit. And so here we are. We're going to go through this movie very quick. There is a guy. What's his name? It's John Doe. You don't get to know who he is. I'm sure they were trying to be cheeky and be like, ooh, maybe people will think it's Jacob. This thing takes place in 1999. He has a weird dream. He's in a plane. He gets sucked out of a plane. There's this, oh, by the way, we know it's 1999 and that all the kids in Springfield died and he's the last survivor that got out. We know that not because there was an awesome montage at the beginning of Freddy just murking teen after teen after teen. No, we got a picture on a screen of a poorly drawn United States with a bunch of text telling you what happened. And then it cuts to this kid. And this kid's like, I don't feel good on this plane. And then the lady's like,
don't be a pussy.
And then the lady next to him gets sucked out the top. And he goes, oh, I almost got out, even though it's 9 years ago. So anyway, he ends up buying a bus ticket in some weird dream. Or maybe not a dream. Who knows? Who cares? And he buys a bus ticket, and like a Looney Tunes cartoon, the bus runs into him, and he's sitting there flat with his face pressed up against the window. Of course, it's Freddy driving the bus, and Freddy drives him right up to Springwood, stops the bus, and he flies through, and I'm not shitting you, rips through space and time with a little hole like this of where his body was when he flew through it, because it's a fucking cartoon. And Freddy goes up to that hole. It says, bring me fresh meat. And he pokes it, and it goes away. And that's how he time travels 9 years into the past. He falls on a road, hits his head on a rock, doesn't know who he is. Amnesia, that's not a cliche. So he gets amnesia, he walks around, he gets brought to this halfway house that's apparently not a halfway house, but it is a halfway house, but it's not. So there's a lady there. And that lady, sometimes she's nice, sometimes she's mean, sometimes she's empathetic, sometimes she doesn't care. And that's a problem with all the character motivations. There's overacting, there's underacting. John Doe, who's a horrible actor, by the way, he gets to a point where he's like, I don't understand. I just have amnesia. I don't. And then she goes, well, where do you come from? He goes, I don't know. And I'm not here. Watch it for yourself.
That's the wonder of amnesia. Just always keeps you guessing.
Where are you from?
I don't know!
It's terrible. It's underacting. It's overacting. It's awful. And so anyways, he meets a couple of kids here. You got the badass boss babe that came up rough, and her father used to sexually abuse her. And so she's got a chip on her shoulder, and she just kicks ass all the time. And she's mean all the time. And she's an asshole all the time. And she's turned up to 10 all the time. Doesn't die though, because you can't kill someone like that. Then you've got the disabled kid that can't hear, which, stop on Carlos for a second. We love Carlos. Then you've got your John Doe, and you've got the weed-smoking son of a rich man. And they let you know he's the son of a rich man because his dad comes in there and gives you a horrible exposition of why he's where he's at. And he's, my dad just wants me to be like him. Typical cliche trash. So John Doe and the therapist are supposed to drive to Springwood. Now, how'd they find out he lived in Springwood? I don't know. A newspaper article, something like that. I don't know. Nobody remembers. And so she drives him there, but the other kids wanted to take the van out, so they hid in the back of the van. And so when she stops, they come rolling out, and she's like, what are you doing here? And I'm sorry. And they get to this fair in Springwood, and she's like, you guys need to drive home. For some reason, I don't know. It's a halfway house. The kids clearly can't leave. The kid's dad checked him in. He can't leave. He's pissed that his dad has him there, yet they're going to let him drive a van home. But anyway, she says, go drive the van home. And they start going around the town and looking into stuff. And it's this fair. It's just stupid. It's a cliche of everything. They have Tom Arnold and Roseanne as a couple that lost their children, and they're like, we want you kids, come here, oh, be in our lives. It's like, oh, this is super creepy. There's a teacher that's teaching about Freddy history. It's just stupid. The whole thing is freaking stupid. And so the kids start driving home, and they keep going in circles. And as they're going in circles, they're like, well, let me drive. You don't know where you're going. But it's obviously Freddy inspired. Now, we're supposed to be in the real world because Freddy's rules don't matter in this one. This movie, the lady said, we want a clean slate. We want it to be light and fluffy. We don't want it to be dark and tied into the other movies. We just want, and that's exactly what this did. And so they're running around in circles. Well, Carlos falls asleep and they ask Carlos to open up the map. And so he starts opening up the map and he keeps opening it, keeps opening it, keeps opening it, keeps opening it, keeps opening it. And then all of a sudden the back of this van is just filled with maps. It was really cool. It was a cool idea. It was a cool concept. It would work. It's the type of thing that works in a dream. And then all of a sudden he sees you're fucked in blood on one of the sheets. And then he wakes up and he's just got the map in his hand. And that was the coolest day. Everything about Carlos is cool. Carlos is the only thing worth the shit in this movie. So anyways, it's getting dark. They can't find their way home. They can't get out of Springwood. And so they say, we need to stop somewhere. And guess where they stop? Ha ha! You'd be wrong. It isn't the Elm Street house. It's just a random house on Elm Street. And it splits apart and it looks creepy, but it's not the same house. So they go in and into this dusty house and they say, we're going to spend the night there. Somehow, John Doe and the therapist, they get back there, right? And so everybody's starting to wonder, is this John Doe? Freddy's not killing him. He brought him there. He wants him to go back to Springwood. I can't remember anything. Maybe I'm Freddy's kid. And he just decides that arbitrarily out of nowhere. He's like, maybe I'm his son. Then the kids start falling asleep, right? So Carlos is the first fall asleep. Now, Carlos, beautiful Carlos. Carlos is the only decent part of this movie. Carlos and Freddy, they're the only two parts of this movie that are good. Carlos falls asleep and he's walking through this hallway and he sees his mom. And he's like, Mama, Mama, because every line is stupid and the actors over and underact all the time. And she goes, you need to clean out your ears. And she pulls out this long ass Q-tip and she proceeds to take it and slowly shove it into his ear. A wicked scene. He's screaming as she's throwing it through her brain. It looks up, it's Freddy, and he pulls it out. Now, would that kill him? Yes, that would absolutely kill him. But we're not operating off of normal rules anymore. We're not operating off of Freddy rules. We're doing whatever the fuck we want. And so this disabled kid, he now can't hear. So Freddy does what Freddy does, and he picks him up and he throws him in a brick wall that turns into a fucking portal that teleports him into a boiler room. He rolls down the stairs. So he's running around trying to find out what's going on. And the whole time, and this is one of the better parts of the movie, the whole time Freddy's behind him going, because the kid can't hear. And so Freddy's like standing, screaming behind him, essentially making fun of a disabled kid. Now, in 2024, that could never happen. They couldn't make this movie. Advocacy groups would be going nuts. But it was beautiful. It was brilliant. So he's on this grate and he falls onto his knees and he says, give me back my hearing. And then Freddy throws down his hearing aid and he puts his hearing aid on. And his hearing aid turns into the symbiote that just like sticks to the side of his head and drills into his ear and makes everything loud. So he hears these water drops, right? And they're so loud. He's like, ah! And now, don't ask me why him screaming wouldn't mess him up, but apparently he can't hear his own screams, but he could hear a water drop hitting the ground. So he goes over and he turns off the water. He's like, ah, which again is louder than the water drop. And Freddy's up there and he looks up at Freddy. Freddy reaches into his finger and pulls out a pin. And he reaches over and he's like, no. Now the no didn't hurt his ears, but that pin dropping was gonna. And then he drops the pin. And he saves it. And then Freddy goes, oh, really? And so he takes a handful of needles and he's like, oh God, no. And he tips it over. And then you just hear this gong, 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 gong as they hit the ground. Well, after that, he starts running away from Freddy again. And then he runs into Freddy in a hallway, and Freddy has this chalkboard, and it's a little bitty chalkboard. And Freddy goes, eh? And he starts making it bigger. And then he takes his claws, and the guy's like, no. And then he screeches it, and the guy's, ah. And then he goes, ah, ooh, ooh. I mean, he's clearly having fun killing Carlos. And it was a great scene. Everything about it, loved it. It was awesome. The only issue I had is Carlos shouldn't have been screaming either, because it would have been louder than any other stuff. But anyway, he scrapes it, and then the kid's head blows off, and he's dead. And when you look at the bed, you would see this head that's exploded, this dismembered body, right? No, the badass boss babe comes in the room and he's not there. So apparently your body just disappears into the dream world in this movie or whatever. But his hearing aid is there, and his hearing aid's got blood on it. And that's how she knew he died. Don't try to make sense. Stop. It's dumb. We're just getting through this. We're trudging through this. So the next one is the rich kid, the rich drug addicted kid. And he's laying there and he's smoking weed. Yeah, doobie, man, because everything's a cliche, man. And so In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida comes on the TV and he's like, this is cool, man. And this is our second cameo. Our second cameo is none other than Johnny Depp. That's right. Johnny Depp makes an appearance on the TV in a drug PSA, which was actually kind of cool. It was a cool callback. I'll give it to her. And then he's like, hey, come on in and play. And he jumps in the TV and he goes into a video game, right? And so he's jumping around because apparently now you've got a body jumping around and you can do superhuman things with the guy when he's asleep. And I'm not joking. When he's moving around as the video game, you hear Looney Tunes sound effects. Bing, bing, whoop, 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 whoop. It's the dumbest scene. So the other people, they're like, oh, we see he's in a dream. He's getting his ass kicked. He's on the ground. He's getting stomped on. And they're like, we need to save him. And so John Doe goes, quick. I'm sorry. John Doe goes, quick, hit me in the head with this 2x4 so I can go into his dreams. Even though nobody knows that that's even possible, except I guess the doc at the halfway house. But John Doe was there for like a day. And so he's like, but somehow he knows, and everybody's like, that means he's Jacob. But the girl knows too, and she can get in. He's like, hit me. And she goes, no, there's a better way to do this. He's like, hit me. And since she's a badass boss babe who's angry all the time, she clocks him upside the head with this 2x4. He falls into the table and disappears because that's what bodies do in the real world in this Freddy. And then right when he lands in the dream, she appears and she goes, I did it through meditation because I'm smarter than you because I'm a woman. Don't forget, this is written by a basic white woman. So anyway, they get in the dream and they find Freddy playing the video game and they take his controller. But hey, this is 1991. The Power Glove's super famous at this point. So Freddy pulls out a Power Glove and he starts playing with the Power Glove. And he ends up killing him. He's hopping around. Her name doesn't matter. You know what? The chick that's totally not Freddy's daughter comes up and sees him and he's bouncing down the stairs like this. And she's like, hey, I found him. And then a hole opens up right in front of her, even though she's not asleep. A hole opens right in front of him. He dives down there. He dies. And then the blood fills up the TV. Woohoo! Whoop-de-doo. Shitty kill. So then they say, we got to get out of here. And so they pick up the kid who's still passed out because he had his brain cracked by a 2x4. They put John Doe in the thing. He drives off. He gets sucked out of the van right as they get to the edge of Springwood because in his dream, he's skydiving and he pulls the chute and he gets pulled up and he gets pulled up. And then here comes Freddy. And Freddy's like, oh, did you think I was your daddy? And he was like, you can't kill me. That's why you didn't kill me. He goes, and this was the big reveal. I kept you alive so you could bring me my daughter. Dun, dun, dun. The only lady that could have been his daughter in the entire movie who went there. Shocker. That's his daughter. Oh, and he didn't have a son. He had a daughter, even though in every single movie, it's the same girl that's drawn on the sidewalk with the pigtails. So he comes out, he's flying in the air, and then Freddy's like, nope. I just needed you to get her here. And so he cuts his strap and he falls. But hitting the ground's not good enough. And this was pretty funny. So Freddy starts pushing out this nail of beds in the middle of the floor that he got from Dreamland Nowhere. But he's using his back and he's pushing. He's like, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. And then he lands on the nail bed. He's dead. It's time to go. That's the last kill of the movie. You still have 30 minutes in the movie. That's the last kill. There is one time where the badass boss bitch goes to sleep and then she has a creepy dad and he's like, give me some sugar, honey. And she's reliving that. But then she gets to kick his ass and she gets to kick Freddy's ass and she burns her arms and she wakes up because you can't kill somebody like that. She's a badass boss. They get back. Nobody remembers who they are. Why? Who knows? Maybe because they were killed in the past, but they weren't in the past because the present, he was from the future. Who knows? Nobody knows why you can't, why they didn't know who any of the kids are. They just didn't exist after Freddy killed them and he absorbed the souls. Oh, before they left Springwood, he absorbed John Doe's soul and then he put himself into his daughter. And that's how he got out because he told him every city has an Elm Street. So Freddy can go on, right? No. We're going to bring him out of the dream world because the old black guy said that, well, if you pull him out, didn't you see the first movie? You can dream him, you can pull him out of the dream and it'll work. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the same thing as the first movie because it worked so well the first time. She goes, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. So she gets there and she goes to sleep. He goes, okay. So also remember, this was the time of 3D. So everybody was doing a 3D act in their movie. This was Freddy's 3D act. Can you watch it in 3D? No, of course not. It was stereophonic. Nobody does stereophonic anymore. 3D TVs died a long time ago. They didn't even put it on the DVD. They didn't put it on the Blu-ray. They didn't do anything. Maybe it'll be on the 4K. Who knows? It's the only thing that'll make it better because the scenes that they made specifically for 3D look stupid in 2D. So anyway, she goes into the dream. She puts her 3D glasses on, which prompts everybody in the movie theater to put their 3D glasses on. And then it's just a bunch of stupid, gimmicky special effects. One of the cool things is you get to see some of Freddy's childhood in his brain. You get to see him killing a hamster with a sledgehammer while the kids taunt him behind him. You get to see his dad, who is Alice Cooper, by the way, his stepdad, coming in to beat the shit out of him, but he's already learned to tolerate pain and he's cutting himself. That was kind of cool. It was kind of to make it empathetic, to understand why Freddy's the monster he is, but wait till we get to the next part. The next part will blow your fucking mind. She goes through all that. She starts to understand Freddy. Then she starts to see these memories of a little girl. And then she turns into the little girl. And that's when she realizes, oh my God, I'm Freddy's daughter. Whoopity-doo. And there's one point at which Freddy's bashing her mom's head against the wall after she went in and she saw all of his claws and stuff. And it was kind of like a Freddy prequel, which actually I wouldn't mind, but they just kind of glossed over it all, which is why we're glossing over it all. She finally gets into the point where she confronts Freddy. She knows she's about to wake up because for some reason, time in the dream world and time on an alarm clock are the exact same in this movie, even though they aren't in real life. So she grabs onto him and then she wakes up, but she's only wearing a part of him. Freddy's nowhere to be found. So she leaves to go find Freddy, and the doctor hears her from a ways ago, but he's like, that's a little weird. She's like, hey, I need you to come over here and help me. I'm in this locker. He opens the locker, and boom, it's Freddy in the real world. And Freddy's like, I'm gonna kill you. And you know what Freddy was gonna kill him with? It's the most awesome thing you've ever seen. Yeah, it was a cartwheel kick. They had Freddy do a stupid looking cartwheel kick. Anyway, the doctor kicks Freddy's ass. The girl kicks Freddy's ass. They end up getting into a weapons locker that they had mentioned earlier in the movie, but it really doesn't matter. They get Freddy locked in the weapons with his closet with his daughter, and he's like, put on a glove. I bet it feels real good. Blah, blah, blah. She kicks his ass. She breaks his fingers. He's like, oh, I forgot how it hurts in the real world, even though he put his fingers back together and started moving them. It doesn't make any sense. None of it's congruent. It's stupid. She puts a piece of dynamite in his chest. It blows up, and then he goes, kids, am I right? And then you see the 3D effect of his face blowing up and stuff flying everywhere. And then the movie was over. It was stupid. It was retarded. Now, why did I fly through that in 26 minutes? It's still too long because there's the end. Now, remember this lady's face, because this is the woman that you have to remember gutted this script and changed it. Here's what The Last Nightmare was supposed to be. It was supposed to have dream police. And I know you say that sounds stupid, but let me get there. So the movie opens up with a guy. You don't really know who he is. He's just running in a dream, and he's running away from Freddy, and Freddy's coming up to him. He's trying to get him. And right as he gets to the point where Freddy's got him cornered, you hear Alice's voice say, "Jacob!" And Alice runs in front of Freddy and starts fighting him, and Freddy kills Alice. And as Alice is dying, she looks back at her son, Jacob, as he gets away from Freddy, and he's saved. That is the opening scene for this movie. Takes off where 5 left off. It gives Alice a proper death. She saved her son. And now you have Jacob taking up the mantle. Then, as the movie progresses, Jacob keeps getting saved in his dreams by these people who wear masks, who he refers to as the dream police. And then eventually their masks come off. You find out it's Taryn, Joey, and Kincaid, but they're dead. Yeah, they're dead. That's why they can't kill Freddy. But they're dream police in people's dreams, protecting them from Freddy. They can fight him off, but they can't actually kill. And you get to watch as they use their Dream Warrior powers more than just the couple of times that they did in 3 Dream Warriors. And so you have them fighting, and everybody who is one of the people in the movie, they all had Dream Warriors. It was a rehash of, not a rehash, but it was a continuation of Dream Warriors, Dream Masters, and Dream Child. And so they go through the movie, and then at the end, Freddy's defeated by what is presumed to be Jacob's love interest. What was her name? This was a fleshed out script. Karen. So his love interest, Karen, her dream power is to morph into anyone she wants to. You gotta understand, everybody had their own powers, and they used them in this one. And so she morphs into Freddy's father, who he was afraid of. And you see Freddy. Let me read it exactly as it says. So we get to the end, and it says, before revealing herself as Karen, tore the souls from Freddy that Freddy fed upon out of his chest as the villain froze in terror. It was dark, surprisingly sad insight into Freddy Krueger's missing backstory that depicts the villain as a scared, helpless abuse victim beneath his sneering veneer, and a fitting end to the beloved franchise villain. Mr. Underwood and she changes into Freddy's stepfather, which was the guy that beat him, not father, stepfather. Mr. Underwood and terrified Freddy, reducing him to a cowering shell of his formerly ferocious self. And then before revealing it was her, she yanks the souls out of him, and he dies as the miserable piece of shit he really was, outside of all his power and his bravado and all of that stuff. And that's how it would have ended, and it would have been fucking perfect. You would have had Kincaid back. You'd have Alice back. You'd have Taryn back. You'd finally get to see that knife duel everyone wanted to see, except for a couple of clinks of a knife and then drugs in her system. You would have had Joey back. All of these beloved characters could have come back. But between her saying she didn't like the script and New Line Cinema saying it would be too much, too expensive, and take too much time to try to get those old cast members back, and the sets were too elaborate and the kills were too expensive, we want to do this on the cheap, they scrapped it. This is the shit they gave us. You absolutely should not watch Freddy's Dead. It's awful. If they come out with the 4K version of it and it doesn't have SBS 3D in it, which is side-by-side 3D, so you can put on a Mega Quest or something like that and watch it, then there's no redeeming value to it whatsoever. But my God, could you imagine if they would have made that movie with the Dream Police and getting to watch Joey and Kincaid and Taryn fight without having to worry about them dying because they're already dead, wrote them in perfectly, seeing them multiple times, these characters that we loved, Alice getting the proper death, Freddy being reduced to what he really was behind all that bravado, just a scared, just beaten child. Instead, we got time-traveling Freddy with a John Doe and a daughter who was laughable at best. Don't watch this movie. It's not worth it. It's a waste of your time. But you know what's not a waste of your time? Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is up next. So I will see you in 3 days on the next Popcornween.